all the way from California. Take it away, Tammy.
Thank you for the introduction, and happy 420 to everyone. I hope you guys are staying safe and celebrating the holiday. We did say that this 420 would be like no other 420s. We just had no idea that it would be quarantine. So without further ado, I would like to share my screen and get my presentation started with you. And can you all see that?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right, so let's get started. So first I'll start with the history. So our first recorded use of cannabis was about 4,000 years, or next, thousands of years ago, about 4,000 BC in Asia. And they actually do have a word for hemp in Chinese, and it is ma. And actually in 1619 in the Virginia colonies, it was actually required for all households to grow cannabis. And it was actually accepted as a form of currency in some states. And another historical prominence that we have towards hemp in our country is there are cities that have hemp in their name to kind of remember how important it was in the economy, like Hempstead, for example. And cannabis was actually in our US pharmacopoeia up until 1942, when it was then considered an evil. So we have this plant that was here for thousands of years that was considered beneficial and healing, and then all of a sudden in the 1900s, it became an evil. So that concept is still very new. And then how did that happen? Well, some would say it is Harry J. Anslinger that caused all this. He was a drug czar that pretty much used racial tension to instill fear into people. He started using the word marijuana as opposed to the scientific word that we've always used, cannabis. And he did that because our friends from south of the border were coming to America after the Mexican Revolution around 1910, 1911. And with them, they brought the psychoactive part of the plant that in America we weren't really consuming cannabis in a smokable way. So they brought that, and in order to instill fear into people, he said that this was something that, you know, jazz players and their satanic music, that they were using this stuff to get white women to sleep with black men, and also just to demonize brown people. So with that, we move forward with the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. And what this did was it taxed farmers for growing it, it taxed physicians for prescribing it, and it taxed pharmacists for selling it. So essentially what it did was it kind of killed any hemp growing that was happening in the United States, especially because at this time, Russia was really an international supplier of hemp. It was a really a big blow to cannabis in America. And then fast forward with the Controlled Substances Act of 1971, that is what got rid of the Marijuana Tax Act. But what the Controlled Substances Act of 1971 did was it classified medicines based on science and their potential of abuse. But what they did was they added an extra class called Schedule 1. And this one was not based on science. Basically, Schedule 1 was built as a firewall to protect the public from being confused about these highly profitable and dangerous legal drugs, and then the street drugs that we know as cannabis, psilocybin. They didn't want people to get kind of confused. Why is cannabis scheduled next to some legal drugs? So what they did with Schedule 1 is they made it to where no doctors could prescribe any of these medicines on this list. It had no medical accepted value was the claim, high addictive potential, just basically all lies to kind of further control cannabis. And this was during the Nixon administration. And again, this was also racially motivated because President Nixon's aide did say that you could not arrest people for being anti-war. Hippies were definitely a big movers of the cannabis industry during this time, and you also could not arrest people for being black. So both of these things were racially motivated, and we can thank Harry J. Anslinger, former drug czar, for that. All right, and now cannabis versus hemp. So the Controlled Substances Act, basically the part about hemp was kind of cut out when we passed the Farm Act of 2018, if you remember. There's still some controversy with the Farm Act. You know, the DEA says any derivatives from the cannabis plant is Schedule 1 and illegal. Hemp is a cannabis plant that has derivatives that are found in the psychoactive parts. So there's still that gray area, is this legal or not, because the FDA kind of has the final say so. And we do have so much political controversy surrounding this plant, but there is botanical taxonomy controversy. Cannabis sativa L would be what we call hemp. So there's controversy between, is sativa, indica, and hybrid their own species, or do we have the psychoactive part and the non-psychoactive part that are species? So, and, you know, just to throw out there, classifying species is kind of always going to be a controversial thing, just because we all have different perspectives on how things should be classified. And then hemp. So to distinguish the two different types of hemp, you have industrial hemp and you have agricultural hemp. So agricultural hemp is grown for, it is grown for, I'm so sorry, I'm like, don't have my notes in front of me. So one is grown for CBDA content, high CBDA content, and that's what we make our CBD oil with. And the other one is grown for its fibers and its stalk to make materials. So hemp oil, which is not the same as CBD oil, ropes, fabric, textile, biomass. So those are going to be the two different distinctions. You have medical grade, you're going to grow that CBDA so that you can make medicine, and then you're going to have the other one so that you can make materials that are biodegradable. And so next, I'll just do a quick run through of the endocannabinoid system. It is over 500 million years old. It is present in all vertebrates on this planet, and its entire function is to maintain homeostasis. And inside of us, we have these receptors, which essentially are locks. And the only keys that fit into these locks are phytocannabinoids, that CBD, well, actually CBD doesn't fit into these locks, but THC, and then our own cannabinoids inside of our body. Those are called endocannabinoids. And they are produced inside of the body. We have the most common ones called anandamide and 2-AG. And then as far as phytocannabinoids go, our most popular ones, obviously CBD and THC. CBG is kind of entering the ring, as well as CBN, which is exciting. And then we also have synthetic cannabinoids that are made in a lab. Most recently, we have Epidiolex at around $30,000 a year. And that is synthetic CBD. And then you have Marinol and Sativex. And just to throw out there, some of these cannabinoids that are made in a lab they have side effects that the natural occurring plant does not. So if you have a choice to choose, I would say go with nature here. So another point that I want to bring out is we have a precursor cannabinoid. So CBG, without CBGA, we get none of the fun stuff down here. So CBGA synthesizes into either CBCA, CBDA, THCA, or it makes CBG. And then from there, when they hit these points, what happens is we decarboxylate, or we heat these cannabinoids to kind of get the fun stuff. So to drop the A's and get the THC or the CBD or the CBE, we decarb it, heat it up with a lighter or in our oven, or however we do it with a vaporizer to get the fun stuff. But decarboxylation can also happen naturally over time. That's how we get CBN. It's a degradation of THC. And CBN is a powerful sleep aid. It is just as powerful as some of the pharmaceutical drugs out on the market. And then we also have the degradations of CBC here and CBD. We don't really talk much about these, but my goal is to get all the information of all cannabinoids out there. And then this is just a bigger graphic with other minor cannabinoids and just kind of more information for you. So let's talk about the entourage effect, because for whatever reason, people think that a sativa is going to give you energy and an indica is going to make you sleepy. And this is going to kind of debunk all of that. So in California, THC content is a big conversation starter. When you walk into a dispensary, bud tenders will tell you, oh, this one has the highest in this category, this one has the highest in this category. But that's not the complete story of the effect that this strain will give you. Sure, it's going to get you high. We know that it has THC, but the terpenes are going to kind of determine the effect that you get, especially because cannabinoids, like me, when I have my coffee in the morning, they work so much better together. And that's because the cannabis plant has hundreds of molecules. Asking one to stand on its own, kind of the way that we do pharmaceutical development. One second, honey. Kind of how we do pharmaceutical development just does not work with this plant. So ideally, you want to get as many cannabinoids and terpenes together to get a desired effect that you're looking for. And what terpenes are is they're just aromatic compounds produced by thousands and thousands of plant species in our world. And it's what gives the cannabis plant its fragrance and flavor. And you get different synergies with different terpenes and different cannabinoids. So that's kind of part of the issue of why we have such a difficult time dosing cannabis, just because there's so many volatile chemicals and compounds in the plant. And what's fun is you can actually look on some of your essential oils or cleaning products, and you can start to find the names of some of these terpenes and terpenoids. So linalool is a real common one that you can see on cleaning products, as well as limonene. And these are kind of some of the things that they relate to. Linalool and myrcene are probably two of my favorite terpenes. I love cilantro, and it is abundant in cilantro. And then these are kind of some of the smells. So as a cannabis user, if you can train your nose, you don't need all the extra data that the testing results gives you. I know if I can smell something sweet, that there's a good chance that I'm probably going to be lethargic and tired. And if I'm smelling something very skunky and very clovey, that there's a good chance that it's going to give me productivity. And that's just my body. These chemicals interact everyone differently. So we can say that here's a guide for these terpenes, but really it's going to come down to you and figuring out what your body likes and what it doesn't like. I always say with cannabis, make it intuitive, smell it. If you don't like how it smells, there's a good chance you may not like the effect that comes with it. If you love it, you might like it. So allow your nose to guide you. But again, terpenes also have their own benefits. Limonene helps with heartburn, gallstones, cholesterol. Myrcene helps with sleep, but again, for me, it doesn't. So I would take these as just kind of a guide and not necessarily Bible, but I do have resources if you'd like this slideshow that kind of go into some of the medical journals that talk about these terpenes. And then I would like to mention, here's some other terpenes and terpenoids found in cannabis, but one terpene is actually also a cannabinoid, and that's beta-caryophyllene. It's found in black pepper. It is a powerful anti-inflammatory, but it also acts on our CB2 receptors in our body. So that one, if you have any doubt, put black pepper on everything. And so then back to taxonomy. Basically, the sativa indica thing of sativas give you energy. It's thought to believe that sativas are high in limonene, and that's why they give you energy. And indica makes you sleepy because it's thought to be heavy in myrcene. Because those words don't mean sleepy or energy, because back in the 1700s when the taxonomists were classifying these plants, they did not roll them and smoke them and say, oh, this sativa, it makes me happy, and this one, this indica makes me tired. Sativum is just Latin for cultivate, and indica is Latin for India. The taxonomy is just really classifying them based on their morphology, what they look like, how they grow, things like that. And to further debunk that sativa does not mean that there's a high presence of limonene and that it gives you energy, we're looking at this chart over here where it looked at the average myrcene content in all three classes that you kind of see on the market. And it looked like their variability was about the same. So it wasn't too big of a difference. So further indicating that the sativa indica binary does not exist. And if you enjoyed today's slideshow,